Hey ladies and gents, this is Dewez coming to you with the review of the Mythic Legion's Azza Spiritbender. Alright, here's the bio. Azza Spiritbender. Like most members of the Convocation of Bassylia, Azza Spiritbender is shrouded in mystery. Her power to control and harness the spirits of the dead not only makes her a dangerous asset, but also an anomaly in the Convocation, where all forms of necromancy are generally frowned upon. Even her closest allies are at a loss to her origins, as to where she learned her magic, or the meanings behind the cryptic markings that cover her skin. One thing that Convocation members are most certain of is that they are all better off with Azza as an ally rather than an enemy. So Azza, International Woman of Mystery. This figure, I have to say, I had my doubts about whether or not it was going to be one of my favorites. But I've learned some lessons from being a Four Horsemen fan for a while, and it's never count a figure out, necessarily based on a prototype or, my personal aesthetic ideas or preferences. Like I've said before that I'm not a huge fan of dwarves, but yet the Four Horsemen have produced Mythic Legion's dwarves that just knock my socks off. Also not a huge fan of necessarily blue mages that, looking at her, I thought, well, she looks like Skeletor and Smurfette had a baby, and or maybe, Smurfette hooked up with a member of the Blue Man group or something. Now, I don't really inherently have anything against figures with blue skin. I'm not a huge Smurf fan like Jordy. Jordy, you know who you are. But anyway, so I had my doubts about the figure. And then I saw her in the package without the cape, without the pauldrons. And, she had this floating cowl on her head, or hood on her head. And I had my doubts there as well. I was like, I'm not sure. So I pull her out. I did have some problems getting the cape on. I tried a different cape configuration for this one. It's got 4 holes, so I figured, hey, I'd pop a couple of her arms in 2 of the holes and the pauldrons in the other holes. I had to really use the hairdryer to loosen up the holes to fit the pauldrons in. So I'm still like, right? But once the cape was on, once the pauldrons were in, and then I put the head back on so the hood wasn't floating above her shoulders, and she had her whole look, her whole cohesive look going on. I was like, hey, I don't know, something magical happened. I kind of fell in love with her. I don't, it, the color really pops. The intricately, designed and painted tattoos on her arm, on her torso, on her face, they just look cool, for lack of a better word. Her white eyes looked very cool. And then another thing I was kind of wondering about was I was already planning, she's got tattoos on her leg. Look at that. Also that match. I was already planning, what am I going to do to kit bash this figure? Because the good thing about Mythic Legion's figures are, if you don't like something as is, you could take and mix and match parts and make something different. And I was already thinking, you know what? I don't know about this bare torso on her. I think I'd prefer something different. So I was already thinking that I was going to maybe turn her into like a picked warrior woman. Picks are like warriors that painted, Celtic warriors that painted their bodies blue and went into battle and stuff. So maybe I'll turn her into something like that, or maybe I'll switch things around. But like I said, once she was all configured, she was glorious. And I was like, how could I ever doubt, right? And the bare midriff, it doesn't bother me. Obviously, your particular mileage may vary on this figure, but I think she's beautifully done. I love the coppery accents around the hood. The other thing that I was thinking was, okay, this is also very reminiscent of Azza, of Ravenna, the fan voted on figure. So that was another thing. I was like, well, it's kind of like sort of the same figure in many ways. So that was kind of interfering with what I thought my enjoyment of the figure would be. But once she had her little bonky stick, she looks very magey. Her mage staff with a mace on top. Like, no, this is another great figure, and I can't believe I ever doubted her. The paint scheme is striking. She comes with, in addition to her mage staff, she comes with this dagger that we've seen before that fits very snugly in the sheath. So it's a very popular dagger. We've seen it with a bunch of other figures before. So maybe it's a Convocation of Bassylia thing, huh? And then obviously she comes with her leather belt, or her and her wings. So I thought this one might be a good figure to put some wings on and take the cape off as well, and I might do that. Probably gonna change the cape configuration because I'm not sure that the configuration that I pick is the best. But that should be easy enough to do. So, has that ever happened to you guys before, where you kind of like think that a figure's not going to be all that great necessarily, but then all of a sudden you get it out of the package and you start messing around with it and you see it in a whole new light? That happens to me a lot with, especially horseman stuff. Not a lot, because generally, I see the appeal of the designs right away and I'm all hot, bothered, and excited. But more often than I would expect. So that's why I've learned, like, you want to, even if there's a figure that seems like it's not your particular cup of tea, you should probably get it, because by the time you pull it out and look at it outside of the package and not just in the prototype pics, you're going to fall in love with it. So that happens. It would be not love at first sight, I guess, but love at third sight, second sight, something like that. So yeah. And I'm still excited about the possibility of mix and matching her parts with some other figures and stuff. So I might play around with that. And if I come up with something I like, then maybe I'll stick with that configuration. If not, I'll just put her back together as originally anticipated. But I think that's part of the fun of collecting these figures. So good job for Horseman. Nice use of the copper and gold to really make the armor pop. What else can I say about her? I can tell you that the hood does restrict the movement of the head quite a bit. I mean, it really doesn't go forward or side to side very much. Obviously, the arms are restricted a bit by the pauldrons because the hood rests on the pauldrons. But, she's a mage. And then everything else is just the regular articulation that we have on all the other female figures. You know what? I think I'm going to pop her arm off. Pop her other arm off. And try to figure out a different configuration for the cape. Yeah, the other thing, if you don't like that, if you don't like the cape sticking out a little bit because you put the armholes in it, you can always put it up here and have like the arm over the cape, but not through the hole. So I think that's probably the approach that I'm going to use for this one. See, that way I get the coat, the cape. The pauldrons are still through two of the holes, but you can't see the cape under her armpits. I'm still going to keep playing with it because I think I may end up using the same configuration I did with Ravenna for the cape, and that was successful because I still don't quite have it right. So anyway, folks, that is Azza Spiritbender. She bends spirits, whatever that means. Just grabs them with her bare hands, I guess, and just bends the heck out of them. You know, if they need chiropractic help or whatever, she's the one to go to. So, all right. That's Azza Spiritbender. Is the Wiz signing out.